Imagine waking up to the sound of gunfire. Your church, where you worship just yesterday, is now burning to the ground. Your neighbors are fleeing. Your pastor is missing. This isn't a scene from a distant war zone. This is Sunday morning in parts of Nigeria. While the world debates conflict in the Middle East, while social media erupts over Gaza and Israel, a crisis has been unfolding in Africa's most populous nation. A crisis that many claimed has claimed thousands of lives, a crisis that some international observers have called one of the deadliest for Christians in the world, yet it remains largely invisible. Today, we are breaking the silence. This is the story they don't want you to hear, the untold story of Christian persecution in Nigeria. Nigeria, a nation of over 200 million people, Africa's largest economy, a country rich in oil, culture, and diversity, home of Nollywood, Afrobeats, and some of the most successful mega churches on the African continent. But beneath this vibrant exterior, there's a darker reality that many Nigerians know all too well, yet the international community has largely ignored. According to reports from various human rights organizations and international watchdog groups, tens of thousands of Christians have allegedly been killed in Nigeria over the past 2 decades. These aren't just statistics. These are fathers, mothers, children, pastors, and farmers, real people with real dreams, cut short by violence. The questions we must ask are uncomfortable. What's really happening? Why is the world silent? And why does a nation with some of Africa's largest and wealthiest churches struggle to protect its Christian communities? The violence reportedly affecting Christian communities in Nigeria is complex and multifaceted. It is not a single event, but rather a pattern that has allegedly emerged over years, particularly in the Middle Belt and northeastern regions of the country. Reports suggest that the attacks on the predominantly Christian villages and communities have become increasingly common. These attacks allegedly involve armed groups including Boko Haram, Islamic State West African Province, and armed herders, though the exact attribution of each attack is often disputed and complex. Humanitarian organizations have documented alleged incidents where entire villages have been razed, churches burned, and community leaders targeted. The methods are reportedly brutal and designed to instill fear. Attacks often occurring at night or during worship centers. Attacks often occurring at night or during worship services when communities are most vulnerable. Open Door, an organization that monitors Christian persecution worldwide, has constantly ranked Nigeria among the deadliest places for Christians. According to their reports, Nigeria has allegedly accounted for the highest number of Christians killed for faith-related reasons in recent years, though these figures and their methodology have been subject to debate. International Crisis Group and other research organizations have published reports suggesting that the violence has created a humanitarian catastrophe with millions displaced from their homes and entire communities destroyed. But here is where it gets complicated. Not everyone agrees on how to characterize this violence. Al Jazeera and several other international media outlets have published investigations challenging the Christian genocide narrative. Their reporting suggests that the violence in Nigeria is primarily driven by economic factors, climate change, and resource competition rather than religious persecution. According to this report, the conflict between farmers and herders, many of whom happen to be Christian and Muslim respectively, is fundamentally about land, water, and grazing rights, not religion. Climate change has allegedly pushed herders southward into farming areas, creating deadly competition for resources. The Nigerian government has largely echoed this position. Officials have repeatedly stated that characterizing the conflict as religious persecution oversimplifies a complex situation and potentially inflames tensions. They point to Muslims who have been victims of violence and argue that criminality and banditry are the real culprits. Some Nigerian academics and analysts argue that international crisis organizations have exaggerated the religious dimensions of the conflict for fundraising purposes, potentially doing more harm than good by framing what is essentially an economic and political crisis in religious terms. This raises an important question. Who's right? Is this genocide, terrorism, a resource conflict, or all of the above? Perhaps what's most striking about this crisis is the relative silence from international community. When conflicts erupt in other parts of the world, we see immediate global attention, hashtag trends, celebrities speak out, government issues strong statements, but for Nigerian Christian communities, that attention has been notably absent.
7,000 Christians have been killed in Nigeria this year. 7,000. According to Newsweek, the story came out. And you don't hear much about it, okay? You don't. You hear a lot more about Gaza than you hear about Christians. Christians get killed. Even some Christians don't talk about it enough. They put more focus onto what's going on with Gaza because it's easier to have a enemy that is disliked than this. However, this is the reality of it, what's going on in Nigeria right now. 7,000 Christians have been killed during the first 220 days of 2025. A civil society watchdog says this is an average of 35 killings a day, according to a recent report published by the Nigeria-based human rights NGO and International Society for Civil Liberties and the Rule of Law. Nigeria has long been an epicenter of Christian persecution, with more Christians killed for their faith in Nigeria than in the rest of the world combined. Damn. According to human rights organization Open Doors, which monitors the persecution of Christians around the globe, the violence has displaced at least 12 million Christians since 2009. 16 years, according to Inner Society. That year marked the start of Boko Haram's insurgency to establish a caliphate in Nigeria and the broader Sahel. In the 16 years since, Inter Society estimates 189,000 civilians have been killed, 125,000 of whom were Christians, and 60,000 were liberal Muslims. The Inter Society reports that 7,087 Christians were killed in Nigeria between January 1st and August 10th, and that 7,800 were abducted in the same period. The report identified Benue State and Nigeria Middle Belt as among the hardest hit, with at least 1,100 deaths, including the Yalawata massacre in June, with 280 Christians were killed. Rob, if you have a clip to play, is this the clip of the gentleman explaining what's going on, or this is the one them running out? Okay, go for it. It's after church service, I believe, by the way.
That's every gunshot you're hearing is hitting a person.
My people, my family members, they died in this house. 11. And some died in the other store. 8. Some died here. My whole family members that died yesterday, day before yesterday, on that very day, there were 20. That is my own family members. I'm not talking about any other thing. That is my own family members. This is my store. Those shops are my stores. Those places are being burned. Those places, this place is being burned. Here and up, my house is up there. That place also is burned. And the store where I pack my goods, I store my goods everywhere, has burned. They burned my clothes, they burned everything, they burned our food. All my family members, what we came out with is our clothes, what we wear. And I, standing here, this is what I came out with. And this is the only thing that I have. There's no anything with me.
Vinny, thoughts?
Going back to exactly what I was talking about, and it's like, I'm going to be honest. I had no idea. And why is that? Because the mainstream media doesn't give a damn, and they're not reporting this. It took Bill Maher. And you guys know me. I'm one of the most critical about this freaking guy, TDS. He goes back, he goes left, he goes right. It took him having Nancy Mace on to bring this up. Bob, you want to play this clip?
Yeah,
play this clip, please.
Nigeria. I mean, the fact that this issue has not gotten on people's radar.
Right, no one's talking about it.
It's pretty amazing. If you don't know what's going on in Nigeria, your media sources suck.
Yep.
You are in a bubble. Not, and again, I'm not a Christian, but they are systematically killing the Christians in Nigeria. They've killed over 100,000 since 2009. They've burned 18,000 churches. This is so much more. These are their Islamists, Boko Haram. This is so much more of a genocide attempt than what is going on in Gaza. They are literally attempting to wipe out the Christian population of an entire country. Where are the kids protesting this?
Yeah.
That's a great point.
Thank you. Because no one will talk about it, so thank you.
Absolutely.
And so why? Is it because, and he said this, Adam, I know you said this at a point, I got to give you credit where credit's due. No Jews, no news. Okay? This is a calling for all the Christian people. Like, where are you at? And you said it, I had to highlight it. In 2023, 4,100 Christians killed. That's 82% of all faith-based related killings worldwide. Guys, 84% of every Christian dying is right there. Okay, and meanwhile, guess what the U.S. lawmakers are pushing? They're pushing. They haven't declared anything, labeling Nigeria a country of particular concern. All right, what particular concern. The concern is there. And this guys, and the most powerful part, and I have to hold back my freaking emotions, with all this persecution, Pat, 94% of Nigerian Catholics are still going to mass every week. Wow. Their faith is freaking unshaken, even in the face of death. Rob, can you play this clip? Look at this. Look at that. They're refusing. Holy moly. God bless them. Look at this.
We praise your name.
Wow. You can stop it, Rob. So that's what faith over fear. Look at that, Tom. Faith. And they're not stopping. They're not stopping. And I absolutely love Pat. They can't. What are they going to do? Bow down and say, no, we're sorry. No. You got to stake up for your faith, and that's it. Wow.
Tom.
As commentators like Bima have pointed out, there seems to be selective approach to which humanitarian crises receive attention and which do not. These conversations in Western media are important, but they raise another question. Why has it taken so long for these discussions to happen? And why are they still so rare? The disparity is striking. While conflict in the Middle East dominates news cycles and social media feeds, violence in Nigeria barely registers. Some observers have noted the irony. Nigerians, both citizens and government officials, will passionately debate Palestine and Israel on social media, organize rallies and demand international intervention, yet remain relatively silent about violence in their own communities. This isn't to diminish the importance of any humanitarian crisis, but rather to question why some lives seem to matter more in the global conversation than others. Here's where the story becomes even more complex and frankly more disturbing. Nigeria is home to some of the largest and wealthiest churches in the world. The Redeemed Christian Church of God, Living Faith Church, Deeper Christian Life Ministry, and many others have millions of members and generate significant revenue. Some Nigerian pastors own private jets, universities, and media empires. Pastor Chris Oyakilome, Pastor E.A. Adeboye, Pastor David Oyedepo, these are names that command influence not just in Nigeria but across Africa and the global Christian diaspora. Their churches are architectural marvels. Their conferences fill stadiums. Their books sell millions of copies. Yet, in the northern and middle belt regions of Nigeria, Christians reportedly continue to face deadly violence, displacement, and persecution. The question many Nigerians ask privately is, where is the church in all this? With such wealth, influence, and organizational capacity, why hasn't Nigerian church leadership been more effective in protecting vulnerable communities or advocating for change? Some church leaders have spoken out, some have provided humanitarian relief, but critics argue that the response has been inadequate given the scale of the crisis and the resource at the church's disposal. This creates a painful paradox, a nation where Christianity is thriving institutionally, while Christians in certain regions allegedly face existential threats. The Nigerian government's response to these allegations of Christian persecution has been defensive and to many observers inadequate. Officials have reportedly denied that Christians are being systematically targeted, insisting instead that Nigeria faces a general security crisis affecting all citizens regardless of religion. They point to military operations against Boko Haram and other armed groups as evidence of their commitment to protecting all Nigerians. President Bola Tinubu's administration, like those before it, have maintained that the violence is primarily criminal and economic in nature. They've deployed military forces to affected regions and implemented various security initiatives, yet reports of attacks have allegedly continued. Critics argue that the government's refusal to acknowledge the religious dimension of some attacks prevents effective policy responses. If you can't name the problem accurately, how can you solve it? There's also been frustration about the perceived slow response to attacks in Christian majority areas compared to other security threats. When violence occurs, families often report being left to defend themselves with minimal government protection or justice for perpetrators. Human rights organizations have called for more robust investigation into the violence and accountability for those responsible, but prosecutions have been rare, contributing to a climate of impunity. Perhaps most troubling is the relative silence of ordinary Nigerians, particularly on social media, where advocacy for other causes is vibrant and vocal. Scroll through Nigerian Twitter and Instagram during Middle Eastern conflicts, and you will find passionate debates, solitary posts, and call for international intervention. The same energy appears during American elections, European controversies, or celebrity scandals. But when it comes to the alleged violence against Christian community in their own country, the engagement drops dramatically. Why? Some analysts suggest fatigue. Nigerians have lived with the insecurity for so long and it's been normalized. Others point to ethnic and regional divisions that prevent national solidarity. Still, others suggest that the complexity of the situation makes people hesitant to engage, fearful of being accused of stirring religious tensions. There's also a political dimension. Nigerian leadership has historically alternated between Christians and Muslims, and any discussion of Christian persecution can quickly become politically weaponized, making genuine conversation difficult. But whatever the reason, the result is the same: a crisis that many Nigerians know about, but few are willing to discuss openly or forcefully demand solutions for. Behind every statistic is a story. Behind every report is a person. There are accounts of mothers who allegedly lost their children in church attacks, fathers who reportedly watched their homes burn, children who supposedly grew up as orphans because their parents were killed in night raids, pastors who allegedly continue to serve their congregation despite multiple threats on their lives. These are stories of entire communities that have allegedly been displaced, now living in camps with uncertain futures. Young people whose education were disrupted, whose dreams were deferred, whose sense of safety was shattered. These stories don't often make international headlines. They don't trend on social media, but they are real, and they represent a humanitarian catastrophe that demands attention and action. So where does this leave us? The truth about Christian persecution in Nigeria is complicated. It exists within a broader context of insecurity, economic crisis, climate change, and political dysfunction. It's tangled up with ethnic tensions, resource competition, and historical grievances. But complexity cannot become an excuse for inaction or silence. Whether you call it genocide, persecution, terrorism, or a resource conflict, the undeniable fact is that people are dying. Communities are being destroyed, and the response from the international community, from the Nigerian government, and from the Nigerian citizens themselves have been inadequate. The world that mobilized for some cause, but not others, must ask itself why. The church that built empires but struggled to protect its most vulnerable members must ask itself why. The government that denies religious dimensions to violence while failing to provide security must ask itself why. And we as Nigerians must break our silence, because this isn't just about Christians or Muslims. It's about whether we value human life. It's about whether we demand justice. It's about whether we will speak up for our neighbors when they need us most. The untold story doesn't have to remain untold. The silence doesn't have to continue. It starts with conversation. It continues with advocacy, and it demands action. This has been the untold story. What will you do with what you now know? Till I come your way again. See you soon.